Let's talk about one of the most used and honestly most abused parts of your body. And no, I'm not talking about your phone thumb, I'm talking about your feet. They are literally the foundation of your entire body, and getting to know them is the first step, yeah, pun intended, to better overall health. So, let's get into it. But really, think about it. When was the last time, beyond just shoving them into socks and shoes in the morning, when did you last give them any real, focused attention? Well, today, that's going to change. We are putting them in the spotlight they absolutely deserve. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about why our feet are so critical in the first place. Then, we'll dive right into the 5 main categories of foot problems, everything from skin-deep issues to things happening in the bones. Oh, and you're going to want to stick around for the end, where we'll reveal this amazing idea of how your feet act as a second heart. Every single step you take, every jump, every time you just stand up, it all starts with your feet. They're your body's shock absorbers. They provide balance, and they propel you through the world. So it makes sense that when things go wrong down there, it can create a ripple effect all the way up your body.
Now, the good news is, we can actually make this pretty simple. It turns out that pretty much every common foot problem you can think of can be sorted into one of 5 distinct categories, and that makes understanding them, and maybe even spotting them, a whole lot easier.
All right, let's get to the core of this whole thing. We're going to peel back the layers here, starting from the issues you can see on the surface and working our way all the way down to the bone.
5. That's the magic number. Just keep that in your head, because it's the framework for everything we're about to cover.
And here they are. So, we've got issues with the skin, then the sweat glands, moving on to the nails, then the bones, and finally circulation. We're going to tackle these in little groups, starting with the first 2, which are really closely related. First up, let's look at what's happening on the surface. These are the problems you're most likely to notice right away, because they affect the skin's texture and its ability to manage moisture through sweat. Okay, let's decode some of these fancy terms. Hyperkeratosis. Sounds complicated, but it's really just thickened skin. It's your body trying to protect itself from pressure, which leads to stuff like calluses. Then you've got the usual suspects you've probably heard of: blisters from friction, and then athlete's foot and warts, which are caused by a fungus or a virus. Now for the sweat glands. It's all about balance here. Too much sweat, or hyperdrosis, can create the perfect damp environment for fungus to thrive. But too little sweat, anadrosis, can lead to super dry, cracked, and painful skin. It's a real delicate dance. All right, let's go a little bit deeper. We're moving from the skin to the actual structural parts of the foot, the nails that protect our toes, and the bones that create its entire architecture. We see the same pattern with nails. Onychocryptosis is just the technical term for that awful, all-too-common pain of an ingrown toenail. Onychomycosis is that stubborn fungal infection that's so hard to get rid of. And an hematoma subungual, that's just a really fancy way of saying you've got a bruise under your nail, probably from stubbing your toe on the coffee table again. Now for the bones, the very things that give our feet their shape. And when there are issues here, it can throw your entire body's alignment out of whack. Piede piatto, or flat feet, can lead to knee pain. On the flip side, piede cavo, a super high arch, can cause instability. And things like bunions and hammer toe, they don't just hurt your foot, they can literally change the way you walk. The foot structure is just so fundamental.
And that brings us to our final, and I think most fascinating category, circulation. But we're not just talking about blood flow in the usual way. There's this incredible concept that completely reframes the purpose of our feet.
Just let that sink in for a second. Our peripheral heart. And this isn't just some poetic phrase, okay? It actually describes a vital biological function that's happening right under our noses, or, right under our ankles.
So how does this work? Deep inside the sole of your foot, there's a dense web of veins called the plantar sponge. Every single time you take a step, you compress that sponge, and it acts like a pump, powerfully shooting blood back up your legs, fighting against gravity all the way back to your heart. It's a brilliant built-in system.
So what happens when we don't use this pump? Well, if you live a pretty sedentary lifestyle, sitting at a desk all day, that plantar sponge doesn't get to do its job. The result is slowed circulation, which leads to that uncomfortable swelling, that gonfiore, that people often notice around their ankles and on the tops of their feet.
But the solution here is beautifully simple. Go for walks. That's the most direct way to activate the pump. Do some basic foot exercises like pointing and flexing your ankles. Hey, even just walking around barefoot at home helps to naturally stimulate the soles of your feet and gets that circulation going. And here's a final, kind of cool takeaway. You know that foot massage you get during a pedicure?
It's not just to help you relax. The physical act of massaging the foot directly stimulates that vital blood and lymphatic flow, basically giving your peripheral heart a helping hand.
So as we wrap this up, just think about it. Our feet are our foundation, they're our shock absorbers, and they're even a second heart. The only question left is, are you giving them the care they so clearly deserve? Thanks for tuning in.